There is a name for what you have been doing. It is not patience, it is not wisdom, it is not even the carefully maintained peace you have been calling it to yourself at 3 a.m. when the question surfaces and you push it back down before it can take its full shape. The name for what you have been doing is deferral. And tonight the full moon in Libra has arrived to tell you that the account is due. Not because the sky punishes those who defer, because 6 months have passed since you first placed this question in the drawer, and a drawer can only hold what it holds before the weight of what is inside it becomes impossible to pretend is not there. Tonight, at 10:12 p.m. Eastern Time, the full moon peaks at 12 degrees and 20 minutes of Libra. The moon is full when it stands directly opposite the sun. Tonight the moon is in Libra and the sun is in Aries. These are the two signs of the self-other axis, the most relational axis in the entire zodiac. Aries is I, Libra is we. And when the full moon lands on this axis, the question it asks is the one most people spend their entire lives circling without ever answering directly. What do you need from the other person? And is what you are getting the same thing? But here's what nobody is telling you about this specific full moon. It is not simply a moon-sun opposition. At 10:12 p.m. tonight, the moon at 12 degrees Libra is opposing the sun at 12 degrees Aries, while both of them form a square to Jupiter at 15 degrees Cancer. This is what astrologers call a Cardinal T-square. Cardinal energy initiates, it pushes, it refuses to allow the situation to remain exactly as it has been. And with all three of these points in cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, and Cancer, the pressure created by this configuration does not ask gently, it demands. It takes every conversation you have been delaying and every tension you have been managing with diplomatic distance and deposits it directly in front of you, where it will not move until you deal with it. The tightening in your jaw that has been arriving each morning without explanation. That is the T-square working in your nervous system before your mind has had time to categorize it. The strange heaviness behind your ribs that has no medical cause. The 3 a.m. awakening when a face appears in your mind and something in your chest does something complicated before you push it back down before sunrise. These are not random. These are the body's way of registering what the mind has been refusing to name. And tonight, under this full moon, the body's signal becomes impossible to manage away. Here is the deeper architecture of this lunation. Every full moon completes a cycle that began at the previous new moon in the same sign. The last new moon in Libra was in October 2025. 6 months ago. Think about what your most significant relationship looked like 6 months ago. The questions that were forming then but had not yet fully crystallized. The conversation you rehearsed but did not have. The decision you were building toward but could not yet fully name. 6 months have passed. The seed planted at that October new moon has been growing in the dark, beneath the surface of everything ordinary, doing the work that seeds do, which is invisible but irreversible. Tonight, that seed reaches its culmination, not its beginning, its harvest. And what you harvest at a Libra full moon is always the same category of thing, the truth about where you actually stand in relation to another person. The real accounting, not the one you give when they ask how things are. The one your body already knows. Now let me tell you what adds urgency to this specific night in a way that is not present at every Libra full moon. Venus, the ruler of Libra, the planet that governs this entire lunation, is in Taurus. She entered Taurus on March 30th, just 2 days before this full moon. Venus in Taurus is Venus in her home sign, operating from her place of highest authority. When the ruler of a full moon is in its home sign, the themes of that lunation are amplified beyond what a surface reading suggests. The relationship questions that surface tonight are not small questions. They are not easily managed back into the drawer. They are the central questions, the ones your life has been organizing itself around whether you acknowledge them or not. And Venus in Taurus is squaring Pluto in Aquarius. This is the aspect that changes everything about the texture of this night. Pluto does not deal in comfortable versions of the truth. Pluto deals in the version that has been true all along, the one that was present in the earliest days of the bond, the one that was visible if you had been willing to look without the filter of what you needed the situation to be. Pluto strips away polite fictions, and in Aquarius, Pluto is not content to leave the fiction intact because it serves a social function. It does not care about the social function. It cares about what is actually real. The Venus-Pluto square tonight asks you one question, and it asks it in a tone that does not leave room for the careful diplomatic non-answer. The question is this: What have you been tolerating in your closest bond that you know, in the part of yourself you do not show to others, is not actually acceptable to you? The ancient star Algorab is conjunct the Libra moon tonight, a fixed star in the wing of the crow. In the Greek tradition, crows were sacred to Apollo, white and silver, honored as messengers. The story goes that a crow carried news of a betrayal to the god. Apollo, receiving the truth he could not bear, burned the crow's feathers black, not for lying, for delivering the truth to someone who was not ready to receive it well. The message was real, the truth was accurate, but the truth arrived at the wrong temperature for the person receiving it. Algorab conjunct the Libra moon tonight is a signal about how you carry whatever this full moon reveals. Not whether you speak it, whether you carry it with enough precision and enough care that it can actually be heard. The truth you are holding tonight is real. The question Algorab is asking is whether you have learned yet how to deliver it so that it changes something rather than just detonating everything. This is the distinction Libra has always understood and always struggled to enact. Libra knows that diplomacy without truth is not diplomacy. It is a beautiful prison. It is the mask you have been wearing for yourself as much as for anyone else. The mask that says everything is balanced when the private accounting tells a different story, when you dress your resentment in the language of patience, when you call your exhaustion wisdom, when you maintain the peace so thoroughly that the peace itself has become the problem. Tonight, the full moon in Libra is not asking you to be more diplomatic. It is asking you to be more honest than diplomacy allows. Let me show you where this lands for each of the signs most directly touched by the Cardinal T-square tonight. For Aries and Aries rising, the full moon lands in your 7th house of partnerships. The question it is asking is not whether you love your partner. It is whether the structure of the partnership still holds the person you have become on both sides. A relationship built for the people you both were 6 months or 6 years ago may not be holding the people you both are now. The T-square demands you look directly at that gap tonight, rather than maintaining the comfortable fiction that nothing has shifted. For Libra and Libra rising, the moon is in your own sign, your 1st house, your identity. The full moon is illuminating the distance between who you are in your relationships and who you actually are when no one needs anything from you. Libra, your gift for seeing every perspective has a shadow. And the shadow is that you can see the other person's side so thoroughly that your own side starts to sound like selfishness by comparison. It is not selfish to want what you want. It is not selfish to require what you require. The reckoning tonight is not about them. It is about you, about the version of yourself you have been suppressing to keep the scales from tipping. For Cancer and Cancer rising, Jupiter in your sign is the apex of tonight's T-square, the exaggeration point, the place where every tension becomes larger than its actual dimensions. Jupiter in Cancer wants to protect. It wants to hold everyone together. But the full moon in Libra is asking whether the protection you have been offering to your relationships has been coming at the cost of your own truth, whether you have been expanding in everyone else's direction and contracting in your own. The T-square is specifically pointing to you tonight and asking whether the emotional generosity you extend outward is matched by an equal generosity toward your own needs. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this T-square activates your 4th house of home and roots. What is the foundation of your most intimate bonds? Not the surface of the relationships, not how they appear from the outside, but the ground-level architecture, the shared assumptions, the unspoken agreements, the things you both decided without ever deciding them. Tonight, the full moon is a light source that reaches into the foundation and shows whether what is there is solid or whether it has been pretending to be solid for long enough that the pretense has become its own kind of weight. Now let me give you the one thing that can actually change something tonight. Not a ritual, not a visualization, a conversation you have been postponing, not the entire conversation, not the final confrontation. A single honest question asked of another person or of yourself that breaks the surface of the diplomatic fiction and lets one genuine thing into the room. Because the Libra full moon does not ask you to overhaul everything tonight. It asks you to let one true thing be named, out loud, in the presence of whatever and whoever it concerns. Here is how to begin. Find the quietest place in your home, not necessarily alone, but quiet. and ask yourself the question that Mercury, now direct after weeks of retrograde fog, is enabling you to finally form with clarity. The question is not what is wrong with this relationship. The question is what is true about it that I have been unwilling to say. Write it down on a physical piece of paper. Write the true thing, not the careful version. The version that lives in your chest at 3 a.m. and that you have been managing back down before it can fully form. Write it, hold it, and then decide whether what you have written requires action, conversation, or simply the acknowledgement of being named. Because what the full moon in Libra understands about truth is something Pluto confirmed tonight with its square to Venus. The truth does not need to be weaponized to be honored. The truth does not need to detonate everything to have its effect. Sometimes the most transformative thing the truth does is simply exist, named, acknowledged, held. Sometimes the shift happens not in the relationship itself, but in your own understanding of what you actually need from it. And that shift, that internal accounting, is what makes every subsequent conversation possible. It is what Libra has always known, that the scales cannot be balanced by refusing to weigh what is on them, that peace built on the avoidance of tension is not peace. It is the slow accumulation of everything that was never said. The relationship truth that surfaces tonight is not punishment. It is the 6-month cycle completing itself the only way cycles can complete, by making visible what has been building in the dark. What you do with what this full moon illuminates will shape the next 6 months. Not just in your relationships, but in your relationship with your own honesty. In your willingness to be the person who names what is real rather than the person who keeps the peace at any cost. Write what the full moon illuminated in the comments below. Not the polished version, the one that changed your breathing when you finally named it. Someone will scroll to that comment later, carrying the same carefully maintained fiction, looking for the confirmation that the truth they have been suppressing is real and worth speaking. Your one honest sentence is that confirmation. The moon reached its fullness. What comes next is in your hands. Subscribe and turn on the bell. What this full moon set in motion in your relationships moves fast. In less than 3 weeks, Mars meets Saturn in Aries, and everything this lunation revealed will meet the test of what you actually do about it. You will want to be here when that arrives. The universe has spoken. What comes next is in your hands.